U.S. Central Command says Iran fired cruise missiles and drones at U.S. flagged ships and U.S. Navy ships in the Strait earlier.
American troops or innocent commercial shipping, you will face overwhelming.
The ceasefire between the U.S. and Iran could be on the brink of collapse.
3:17 local time, Gulf of Oman. T-minus 43 seconds until impact. 1 Iranian hypersonic missile. 312 sailors in the crosshairs. Every second counts. This is the story of 38 minutes that changed the calculus of naval warfare in one of the most dangerous waterways on Earth. The sea is black glass tonight. Warm wind. Low swell. Tanker lights burning on the horizon like a second coastline. 40 nautical miles east of the Strait of Hormuz, the USS Jack H. Lucas, a real Flight 3 Arleigh Burke-class destroyer, is holding station on escort duty. 4 SBY-6 radar faces are scanning in silence. 96 Mk-41 vertical launch cells sit below deck, loaded for the kind of night every sailor trains for and prays never comes. And this patch of water matters. It matters because roughly a fifth of the world's oil supply moves through the Hormuz corridor. It matters because every radar contact here could be a fisherman, a tanker, a drone, a fast attack craft, or a missile. It matters because when tensions spike between Washington and Tehran, this isn't just a stretch of ocean. It's a loaded chamber. Imagine you're standing on that bridge wing. Salt in the air. Engines humming through steel. Nothing visible but darkness, navigation lights, and distance. It feels routine. It feels controlled. That's the illusion. Because 620 miles away, inside a hardened launch complex near Iran's southern coast, men in IRGC Aerospace Force uniforms are gambling on a spectacle. Not a war-winning strike. A message. A filmed, undeniable, global message. Their plan is brutally simple. Launch what Tehran publicly calls a Fateh-class hypersonic missile, a weapon advertised at speeds between Mach 13 and Mach 15, backed by a maneuvering re-entry vehicle designed to complicate intercept geometry. At the same time, flood the battlespace with supporting threats, 8 one-way attack drones from proxy territory, 4 sea-skimming cruise missiles from mobile launchers, and a wave of electronic interference aimed at cluttering the destroyer's tactical picture. Why do they think it can work? Because speed compresses decisions. Because saturation punishes hesitation. Because political pressure in Tehran is demanding proof that American warships can bleed. And because somewhere in that chain of command, someone has convinced himself that a single successful hit on a US destroyer in the Gulf would do more than sink steel. It would shatter deterrence. From their perspective, this is a calculated chess match. One high-value strike. One iconic target. One short burst of chaos that forces Washington to choose between embarrassment and escalation. But there's a problem with their plan. They're thinking in pieces. The Americans are fighting as a network. What they didn't account for is that the destroyer is not alone just because it appears alone. It is tied into satellites overhead, command centers ashore, airborne surveillance, encrypted data links, and a radar suite built to see farther, classify faster, and discriminate more cleanly than the generation before it. They planned against a ship. They are about to hit a system. And the first clue arrives almost instantly. 6 seconds after launch, space-based infrared sensors catch the thermal bloom over southern Iran. The alert flashes through the architecture before the missile even clears its boost profile. Bahrain sees it. Al Udeid sees it. The regional air picture tightens. Correlation begins. Trajectory projections race across screens. On board Jack H. Lucas, the Combat Information Center changes in a heartbeat. General Quarters. General Quarters. All hands man your battle stations. Red lights. Headsets. Chairs locking in. Voices flattening. No wasted words now. Track numbers appear. Confidence values climb. The SBY-6 air and missile defense radar sweeps, refines, updates. One object is accelerating hard, climbing high, then bending into a profile that no one mistakes for routine. This is not a drone. Not a cruise missile. Not a false alarm. This is the one they trained for. You're there now in the CIC, shoulder to shoulder with operators staring into glowing scopes. Heart pounding. This is real. Could you trust the data with 43 seconds left? Could you make the call knowing a bad decision doesn't just kill you, it kills everyone around you? The tactical action officer doesn't hesitate. Weapons free. The supporting raid arrives first, exactly as designed. 8 one-way attack drones, low and slow, creeping in from staggered bearings. 4 cruise missiles behind them, skimming the sea, using terrain and clutter to shorten reaction time. It's a classic distraction package. Cheap threats in front, lethal threat behind. Force the ship to split attention. Drain cells. Blur the picture. Except the picture isn't blurring. Spy 6 is sorting contacts by behavior, velocity, altitude, and probability. Cooperative tracks are being fused. An E-2D Hawkeye farther south confirms the drone vectors. Electronic warfare teams start burning through the interference. The destroyer's command team doesn't chase noise. It prioritizes kill chains.
First layer.
The cruise missiles. 2 SM-2s thunder out of the forward VLS, white-hot pillars punching through the dark.
Then 2 more.
The deck kicks. The night becomes daylight for half a second. Up on the bridge, sailors feel the shock in their ribs. On the scopes, for interceptors arc outward, take mid-course updates, then drive down toward the sea-hugging contacts. The first cruise missile disappears in a flash 27 nautical miles out. The second breaks apart 3 seconds later. The third tries to jink.
Too late.
The fourth survives longest, only because debris and spray confuse the picture for a breath, one tiny stolen breath, before another standard reaches it and tears it into incandescent fragments over open water.
4 launched, 4 gone. No celebration. No one has time.
Because the drones are still
Coming.
8 separate tracks.
Cheap to build.
Expensive to ignore. Now the destroyer shifts weapons. An ESSM Block 2 salvo rips out next, shorter-legged but brutally agile. One drone vanishes.
Then another.
The remaining contacts split, trying to force sector overload. The ship answers with layering. Missiles first, then the 5-inch gun, then close-in systems if anything leaks through. From topside, it sounds like the ship is punching the night.
Deep missile cracks.
The heavier bark of the Mk-45 gun. A vibration through deck plates as rapid fire begins. Tracers stitch into darkness. One drone cartwheels into the water. Another bursts into sparks so close the splash throws mist across the forecastle. 2 more are shredded by proximity bursts before they can line up terminal runs. 8 drones launched.
8 killed.
And now only 1 track matters. The Fatah-class missile is descending.
Not falling. Hunting.
It has burned up speed and altitude, then tipped into terminal maneuver, forcing the fire control solution to keep adapting. This is why hypersonic threats are terrifying. Not just because they're fast. Because they compress the human mind. They don't give you time to doubt.
They punish doubt.
31 seconds. The missile is now the brightest problem in the sky. The destroyer launches its first pair of SM-SIXS. These are not ordinary shots. This is what Aegis exists for. Sensor fusion, high-speed targeting, over-the-horizon engagement, layered defense tied to a single combat brain. 2 SM-SIXS leap from their cells and climb hard, guided by a kill chain built from satellite warning, shipboard radar, and real-time updates faster than any shouting human voice. The CIC goes nearly silent. One operator calls range. Another calls closing velocity. The air defense commander watches the predicted intercept box shrink.
19 seconds.
The incoming weapon shifts left.
1 SM, 6 corrects.
The second overshoots by a fraction, self-terminates, and disappears from the board. That's the moment fear hits the room.
1 miss.
1 shot left in the basket. 1 hostile warhead still alive. Could you breathe in that second? Could you keep your voice steady when every person on board is counting on your next sentence?
14 seconds.
The surviving SM-6 is still tracking.
Still climbing.
Still receiving updates as the incoming missile knifes down through heat, plasma, and geometry. On the bridge, nobody can see the math. They only know the sea has gone quiet in the worst possible way.
10 seconds.
Last-ditch actions begin anyway. Hard rudder input.
Electronic warfare bloom.
Nulka decoy preparations. The ship is doing everything at once now, because modern combat isn't about one perfect answer. It's about stacking answers until one works. 7 seconds. The tactical display shows the 2 tracks converging so fast the icons almost touch.
5 seconds. Then it happens.
A white rupture in the upper dark.
Not a fireball first. A flash. Needle sharp.
Then the bloom, spreading wide and violent as fragments shear outward at impossible speed. The incoming track splits into dozens, then hundreds, then nothing coherent at all. Momentum carries debris forward. Tiny pieces hiss into the sea. Larger fragments streak past, one slamming into the water 1,900 meters off the port bow, sending a column of spray higher than the mast. The shock wave hits half a beat later, seconds before impact.
Not a test. Not a warning. An interception.
The crew doesn't cheer yet because everyone on board knows the oldest rule in missile defense: assume leakers.
Confirm the kill. Search for debris.
Scan for a second shooter. Rebuild the picture.
The radar sweeps again.
No second hypersonic track. No surviving cruise missiles. No drones in terminal range.
The ship is still alive.
Now switch perspectives. Put yourself in the Iranian operations room for just a moment. They expected footage of a burning destroyer. They expected panic in shipping lanes, a spike in insurance rates, an international psychological win. Instead, they are watching their most dramatic weapon die in the final seconds, defeated not by one miracle shot, but by a network defense they failed to understand. And now comes the part they understand even less.
Authorization.
US doctrine doesn't require hysteria. It requires options. And within minutes, options become orders. At US 5th Fleet headquarters in Bahrain and across the regional command architecture, the attack is treated for what it is in this fictional scenario, a deliberate state-directed strike on a US warship in international waters. The response is designed with a purpose beyond punishment.
Break the launch chain.
Break the sensor chain. Break the confidence behind the next launch. The counterstrike package forms fast. F-35 as out of Al-Dafra. Carrier-based F-35CS and Super Hornets from a strike group operating farther south. EA-18G Growlers for electronic suppression. A guided missile submarine already in theater. 2 additional destroyers queued for Tomahawk launches. Space-based ISR overhead. MQ-9s widening the search net. Cyber and electronic teams leaning into Iranian coastal radars and communications nodes. This is no blind revenge strike. It is a surgical campaign built in layers, just like the defense that saved the ship. First targets: the mobile launch battery believed to have fired the hypersonic missile, identified through thermal detection, route modeling, and post-launch signatures. Second, coastal surveillance radars and fire control nodes along the Iranian littoral that supported targeting. Third, cruise missile transporter erector launchers and drone assembly sites tied to the supporting raid. Fourth, command bunkers and relay stations that kept the whole system talking. Tomahawks arrive first, low and fast, crossing the coast in separate axes.
Then stealth aircraft.
Then standoff weapons. Bunkers are cracked. Launchers are burned in.
Revetments.
Storage igloos erupt. A command post goes dark. Fiber links are cut. Surface search radars vanish from the scope. Runways aren't cratered indiscriminately. Fuel, sensors, missile support buildings and hardened maintenance shelters are hit with precision. The goal isn't spectacle. It's future capability denial. For every one weapon they sent at the destroyer, dozens now descend on the machinery that made that attack possible. And here is the part that matters strategically. The response doesn't just kill hardware.
It kills confidence. Crews scatter.
Communications fragment. Surviving launch teams go to ground, unsure if the next transmission will expose them. Political leaders who demanded a dramatic victory get the opposite, a calculated demonstration of what happens when speed meets integration, and integration wins. By 03:55 local time, 38 minutes after the first launch plume was detected, the engagement is effectively over. Final tally: 1 Fateh-class hypersonic missile launched, 4 cruise missiles fired, 8 one-way attack drones committed, 13 threats destroyed before they could inflict strategic damage, 0 hits on the destroyer, 3 minor injuries aboard from blast shock and emergency movement, no fatalities. On the other side, multiple launchers destroyed, coastal radar sites disabled, drone infrastructure shredded, command facilities neutralized, and an entire regional narrative overturned in less time than your morning commute. That's the brutal truth of modern naval warfare. It isn't about who fires first. It isn't even about who has the fastest missile. It's about who sees first, sorts first, decides first, and integrates every sensor and shooter into one disciplined machine. The fatal miscalculation was never just technical. It was psychological. They believed a hypersonic label would create inevitability. They believed speed alone would force paralysis. They believed a single spectacular shot could erase the advantage of training, networking, and layered defense.
It couldn't.
Because a destroyer like this is no longer just a ship with missiles. It is a floating node in a larger combat web. Radar, satellites, data links, interceptors, doctrine, and people under pressure, all fused together. That is what survived those last few seconds.
Not luck.
Not magic.
A system.
And maybe that's the biggest lesson of all. The future of warfare belongs less to the side with the loudest claim and more to the side that can connect information to action before the other side can even understand what's happening. So which decision was most critical? The early satellite queue, the calm inside the CIC, or the immediate counterstrike that erased the launch chain?
Debate below.
Hit subscribe for in-depth military breakdowns.